maintaining a family and running a family involves many logistical concerns. So there's financial concerns and there's other various things that take up a person's time, etc. But if there is an undercurrent of continuing to develop some kind of spiritual direction and goal in one's life, then everything that one does on a practical level to maintain their family will be infused with that, will be brought into harmony with that direction, that objective.
Hi, Vishaka here. I'm here with our good friend Gadadhar. And as you know, I've been living as a monk for many years. This actually can create a barrier sometimes when I'm trying to share these teachings, because persons feel, okay, what you're saying is very nice, but you're living this very kind of privileged life in a sense, where you can exclusively pursue this. How does that actually relate to us? How is that pertinent to me in my life here and now? And so Gadadhar is a very interesting case because he spent a number of years also living as a monk. And then he relatively recently made the transition into family life. He has a beautiful wife, beautiful daughter. And he also maintains a strong spiritual focus in his life. So I would love to hear from you something about how you do that, how you experienced that transition, and anything else you'd like to share that would be of help for our viewers.
Sure. Well, I've been married for about 5 years now, and I have a daughter who's 3. And my wife is a teacher. Previously, she worked at the university, and now she works as a primary school teacher. So we're a relatively normal family, and for myself and for most people, that is the kind of social position they'll find themselves in. If they're affiliated with a religion or they join a religion, then as with most people, they'll want to, every creature is going to want to find some kind of love, find a partner, have a family perhaps. That's the normal social situation they'll find themselves in. And if they're also pursuing some kind of spiritual life, then that has to be incorporated into their family situation. That can be a little tricky in the sense that maintaining a family and running a family involves many logistical concerns. So there's financial concerns and there's other various things that take up a person's time, etc. But if there is an undercurrent of continuing to develop some kind of spiritual direction and goal in one's life, then everything that one does on a practical level to maintain their family will be infused with that, will be brought into harmony with that direction, that objective. And that creates a very nice atmosphere, because for any relationship, there needs to be, for any relationship to work, for any marriage or even any, in a broader social sense, for any human interaction to work, there needs to be harmony. And that harmony must be based on some kind of area of commonality, a shared interest. And so the stronger that shared interest, it implies that the harmony is also on a stronger ground, a stronger premise. So many relationships these days, they'll suffer, well, they might get off to a good start because there's some kind of commonality. Often that's on the physical level. And so once that expires, then that common ground is gone and the relationship, the harmony suffers. So the person is then left, bereft of that happiness that they were searching for in the relationship, and they have to start all over again with someone else. That's not very helpful for long-term happiness. So finding a common ground is absolutely essential. And the best common ground is a type of common ground that is permanent and that has longevity and that has potential to grow with time and not wear itself out with time. And that is a spiritual objective. If the commonality is physical, then it has a minimal longevity. Once the lust factor is gone, the relationship is going to fall to bits. If the commonality is physical and mental, then the mental compatibility between the couple will perpetuate the relationship for a little bit longer. But still, it's going to expire after a while because people's minds change, people's minds evolve. Unless the partner's minds are evolving in synchronicity, then one is going to move tangentially away from the other, the compatibility is broken, the relationship breaks. However, if the couple is pursuing a spiritual life, if the commonality is on the spiritual level, then it can always grow and continue to nourish the harmony in the relationship. And so there may be physical compatibility, there may be emotional and mental compatibility, but it's essential that there's spiritual compatibility because that is on the deepest level, and that will ensure harmony and progression and growth in the relationship. And that is an assurance of some kind of satisfying marital life, even on a practical level, but also on a longer term spiritual level in terms of achieving a spiritual objective. So that is the basic philosophy behind people that are married in a spiritual context.
Well, that's a very interesting perspective on how faith can actually support, relationships in the world. That's very valuable insight. Can you speak also in a broader sense how your spiritual faith and activity is integrated with your, maintenance of your life in this world as a family man?
Well, one of our teachers, his name is Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He was a family man and very successful also in his profession, in his professional life. He lived in 19th century India, and he was a magistrate for most of his professional career. He had some 7 children, I believe. 7?
I think it was more.
More?
I think it was a little more. I don't remember
Many
the exact
children.
number, but it was quite a good number.
Families used to have more children, but still, even considering, I think it was quite a large family. So he is the modern, you could say, Renaissance figure for the Hare Krishna faith. And he says, he authored many books, and in one of those books, he says that when he sees his family collectively, communally, harmoniously engaged in spiritual pursuit, then he sees it like paradise. So he says actually Vrindavan, which is the abode of Krishna, which is the ultimate destination for a devotee of Krishna. So the most beautiful, idyllic place, Vrindavan, he sees that actually in his family home when the family is collectively engaged in a spiritual focus, a spiritual direction. And that is the basic premise, and everything else tends to fall into place based on that. If there's one core direction, then all of the other, let's say, more ephemeral, logistical needs of this world, responsibilities, tend to align themselves based on that core direction that is shared in the family. And if one is able to view their family with that very lofty perspective of seeing them engaged in a beautiful atmosphere akin to Vrindavan, then imagine the kind of experience of that family. It becomes a beautiful experience. So there's no drudgery of going to work or like doing this or doing that or performing family chores or fulfilling one's responsibilities in the world, or whatever may be the perceived downsides of a responsible married life in this world, tend to wash away because they are overshadowed, in a sense, by this very high conception that the family is collectively working towards. And in order to support that, to solidify and support that, then it is important for families of like-minded objective to get together in a wider group. So a wider social circle is formed of a collective of like-minded families that share the same objective. And then there is a symbiosis where each family is supporting the other and towards a common goal. And then that Vrindavan, that paradise, that utopian spiritual atmosphere is spread from outside one's own family unit and encompasses other families as well. And not just those families that are actively involved, but it's an example for wider society as well, to show an alternative to the essentially the dissatisfying social structure that we have today with all of its problems.
That's wonderful, beautifully expressed. Could you share some of the some examples of some of the activities that you might perform together as a family in your home, on a with a spiritual focus?
So we have, you could go chronologically through the day. In the morning, we like to start early, maybe around 6 a.m., around sunrise. Before sunrise is nice. There's a time before sunrise called Brahma Muhurta, and it starts, a Muhurta is a time span of 48 minutes. And so Brahma Muhurta is actually 96 minutes prior to sunrise, the time window.
What's special about that time?
Well, we're getting to that. So the 96 minutes before sunrise is known as Brahma Muhurta. And it is a time where Brahma is the god of creation, or the being responsible for creation. So whatever one wants to bring into creation into their life, if it is performed during Brahma Muhurta, then it is very compatible. It's like a supportive influence for whatever that practice or is that a person wants to manifest in their life. So it is nice, and we don't always manage to tap into and take advantage of Brahma Muhurta, but we like to. So for a devotee or for a spiritual practitioner, even though Brahma Muhurta can be used by anyone for whatever they want to manifest, whatever they want to create in their life, for a spiritual aspirant, Brahma Muhurta is used to bring to enhance the spiritual activity in their life. So we'll do some worship and sing our traditional songs, traditional morning songs. We have a picture of our spiritual master, Srila Govinda Maharaj. And so we offer some flowers and incense and some fruit. And so it's a simple morning ritual. And that sets a tone for the remainder of the day. Often what one does at the start of the day tends to spread its flavor throughout the rest of the day. An activity of worship and a spiritual activity of devotion tends to lend its influence to the rest of the day. And then, so throughout the day, we will do the normal things, have some breakfast, and I do a lot of writing. I work as an astrologer, and my wife works as a teacher. And for most of the day, you could say our activities are pretty much resembling of a normal family. Our daughter goes to creche, and so I'll pick her up, and there is nothing sort of unusual or out of the ordinary in our daily schedule. But as mentioned before, it is premised on a spiritual goal or a spiritual direction.
Beautiful, beautiful, very inspiring. Now, your daughter is just 3 years old, you said.
Yeah.
So this is kind of an interesting period, where you're watching her grow up, and of course you're an astrologer, so you get some hints as to which way she's going to go.
Yeah.
But what is your view on her as an individual in connection with your faith? Do you have strong expectations, or are you thinking you're going to give her room to decide for herself, or what have you thought about this?
Yes, absolutely. I've thought about it. So my position on that is in alignment with how anyone would like to have something good come into their life, and that is that they would like to choose it themselves. They would like to welcome it into their life based on their own volition, not someone telling them they have to do it, or someone coercing them for using whatever tactic or method to accept something. So there's no conversion or compulsion in my approach to presenting spiritual ideas to my daughter. So it's it is exposing her to a spiritual life and to a spiritual atmosphere with no pressure or compulsion to then have to herself feel obligated to involve herself in such a thing.
Well, that's beautiful. Lastly, don't want to take too much of your time and everyone else's time. I just want to backtrack. You did spend a number of years as a monk. Do you want to say anything about that and how you made the transition? Any type of comparison between the two lifestyles? Any comments on that?
Yes, well, the life of a monk is always good because even practically speaking, there's nothing really to take your time and energy. There's no direct responsibilities to anyone else. Of course, if you occupy the position of a teacher or something, there's a certain amount of responsibility. But as a family person, there is direct and immediate responsibility. And on the practical level, that is going to take your time. So it's a matter of time. How much time will you have to focus on your whatever objective it may be? In the case of a monk, in the case of a spiritual aspirant, it's a spiritual objective, and to make the rate of progress in the pursuit of an objective is determined by the amount of focus a person can have on it and how long they can maintain that concentrated focus. So if you've got other responsibilities that are taking up your time, they need to be focused on, then that is always potentially going to detract from a rate of progress in something. So the whole idea behind a monk is not to be in a position of prestige or something, although that comes as a result of what it's supposed to represent. But it's to provide time and mental clarity and focus to make more rapid progress on a spiritual path. And so transitioning from that to family life does simply involve the practical change and having to focus on other things. And that is okay. It brings a certain new perspective on life, and everything. You could say, as a monk, a person is kind of taking care of themselves in a sense, and offering their contribution as one of spiritual guidance to others. As a person that gets involved in family life, then their contribution is of a you could say it becomes a little more involved and personal with the family unit. So that brings out a different side of the human nature, and that's good. That's very nice, particularly as mentioned before, when it's dovetailed or when it's infused with a spiritual direction. And that is nice, particularly in going back to my daughter, particularly when you see them appreciating, even at a young age, developing a taste for and appreciation for, and of their own choice, for spiritual ideas, even though there's no philosophical comprehension. I don't think at the age of 3, still there's an appreciation, because ultimately it's a substance that have cultured in the heart, and so at any age it can be appreciated. It's unspoken. It's deeper level than that of the intellect. So that is very satisfying and very nice. So being a monk and being a householder both have their benefits. And our teachers say that one isn't necessarily superior to the other. One is recommended if a person can occupy that social position, simply because, as stated before, it allows more time to focus on a spiritual goal. Whereas a householder life does require attention to other responsibilities. But both can be suitable or unsuitable for spiritual life. So it really boils down to the individual and how much attention they are paying to their spiritual objectives. Yeah. And really it's whatever the person, it's a very, very common sense and down to earth, whatever the person feels they're comfortable with. If a person is a monk and they're not happy in such a situation, then it's not going to be helpful for their spiritual life or for their growth as a person on any level. And if a person is approaching married life also for the wrong reasons, then that's not going to be helpful for their spiritual life. There does need to be a balance. And even in family life, it's not that it's just a green light for rampant, unrestricted sensuality. So there's a certain amount of monk-like discipline that can be applied in married life too. And that brings us to an important point, is that often with married life, it's something of a middle ground, where they're not living the strict, disciplined, restrained life of a monk, but they're most certainly not living in a hedonistic, unrestrained, sensual-based lifestyle. And so it allows one to express whatever physical and emotional needs they have as a human being, but at the same time cultivate spiritual life. So it's a type of middle ground that realistically maybe 99% of the population is recommended, or that they will realistically find themselves in that situation. And back to the point, as long as that is kept, or as long as that is conducted with some amount of keeping the goal in mind, always keeping the goal in mind, then everything will work out well, ultimately, in the end.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Gadadhar.
You're welcome.
You've expressed that all very beautifully, very articulately.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah, I hope we can hear more from you.
Thank you.
Okay, signing out for now.